Welcome to OPC Day 2024. My name is Jim Luth. I'm the chair of the OPCUA Working Group and the CTO of the OPC Foundation. I'm also a system architect for Schneider Electric. Today I will present the current status of the UA specification. The OPC core specification has grown over time to 24 parts. That's thousands of pages of specification. The core parts are the responsibility of the OPC UA working group that I chair. Prior to the 105 release, we released new versions infrequently and issued errata and amendment documents between the releases to provide any updates. Beginning with the 105 release, we no longer issue errata and amendments. Instead, we issue an updated part directly, but much more frequently. As you can see from the table, by the blank cells without the check boxes, not all parts are released for every version. Parts are only updated when changes are necessary for new features, corrections, or clarifications. So here's the release timeline for the 105 releases. The cells with the numbers represent the day of the month the document was released. So for example, on June 16th, 2021, the release candidate for 1.050 was released. Some 4 months later, on October 27th, the final release of that document went out. And with each row in the table, you can see the subsequent release candidate final release dates for each of the versions. As you can see, we've been able to release a new version once or twice in a year. The goal is to consistently make 2 releases a year on a predictable schedule, but we have not yet achieved this desired cadence. The upcoming release, 1.05.04, is almost ready for release candidate, and I predict it'll be released by the end of this month, with a subsequent final release at the end of September. Hundreds of changes are made to the specification parts with each release, but on the next few slides I'll try to highlight major features that were added in each of the releases that we've done so far in the 105 series. So the first release, of course, was 1.05.00, where we added the elliptic curve cryptography capability to the standard to enhance and make a more efficient way to do the cryptography than the classic RSA that we've supported since the beginning. We also extended the state machine model to enhance that with choice states and guards. And we did work on our OPC UA role spec, and we've added role sets and well-known roles to enhance the standard way of dealing with roles and permissions in OPC UA. In the 01 release, we added support for MQT 5.0 to our pub/sub specification. This joined the existing MQTT 3 support that we had prior. We also added the UADP header layouts to the pub/sub spec, and we added additional discovery messages. We also enhanced the pub/sub configuration model. As you can see from those major features, much of the work was done in Part 14, the pub/sub spec. However, we added 2 additional new parts to the 01 release. We added a part that deals with the base network model, and that's a way to describe network physical connections, logical connections, metadata around the network, capabilities, and so forth. This all becomes very important with the UAFX work with integrating TSN. And we also added Part 23 for common reference types. This includes things like is related to, depends on, is connected to, and a number of series of rather generic but useful reference types that can be derived from and made more special, providing specific semantics to those relationships. In the 02 release, we added alarm state variables to allow DA clients to display aggregate alarm information, enhancing our ability to show relevant information about alarms en masse. We added support for gzip compression to JSON messages for MQTT5, an important part to optimize the transmission of the payload for JSON. We also added a reference description variable. This allows reference refinement in a way to, again, provide more semantics and more metadata regarding a specific reference type. And we again added 2 additional parts to the series. We added part 21, device onboarding, and part 24, scheduler. So in the 03 release, we added a bit field data type. This allows to provide metadata for a string of contiguous bits in a field and describe what they're used for. So as an example, I could take an 8-bit byte and break it up into a 3-bit integer field and a 5-bit integer field and pack them together in a single byte and transmit them as one thing as opposed to 2 separate fields. We also added a way to express metadata for key value pairs. We've had key value pairs in UA for quite some time, and now we have a way to describe the metadata that lets the world know what the key value pairs represent. We added a quantity model that's referenced from the engineering units property. The quantity model extends the engineering unit concept by grouping like engineering units together when they refer to the same type of quantity. So, as an example, gallons and liters are both volumetric quantities. Inches and feet and meters are all length quantities. And this allows a convenient way to relate one engineering unit to another and provide conversions provided the quantity model is the same. We also added 2 new historical configuration objects, one for external event collection and one for periodic data collection. Again, these are enhancements to our Part 11 historical access part. And lastly, we added a standard MQT topic tree. Using MQTT, messages are sent to topics, and topics are used by subscribers to find and subscribe to things, using wildcards. And by having a consistent pattern to follow, we can conveniently make use of MQT topic tree in a standard way. And that was added in the PubSub Part 14 for the 03 release. And now I'll talk about the upcoming features. This is what you really came here to find out. What's new, what's coming up. So in the 04 release that hopefully will be released as a release candidate at the end of this month, we've added a couple of special locales to allow the return of text in multiple locales at the same time. In UA, typically in a session, the client expresses a preferred locale and the server returns one localized string for each thing that's read. But there are special cases where clients may want to have available all of the possible locales from a server for a particular value. And this allows that, specifying I want them all or I want some subset of locales to be returned all in the same call. And we also have a way to do some text substitution with that as well. We've also simplified and improved our JSON encodings, and we've got this down to where we have 2 encodings, one compact and one verbose. One is built on the other. The verbose has a few more things than the compact encoding, but otherwise they are identical. And a major simplification we've done with the JSON encodings is they use namespace URIs instead of namespace indexes. And this simplifies the handling of OPC UA messages by clients, and they don't have to understand our notion of namespace indexes, where the namespace indexes can change over time, etc., etc. So this was a major sort of rework of the JSON encodings that will simplify things greatly going forward. And on the related JSON note, we also added an Open API 3.0 and JSON schema mapping to allow an IT-friendly REST interface using the OPC UA client server paradigm. This is significant in that it allows clients and servers to be built without OPC UA toolkit stacks and the like, because the Open API specification allows you to sort of just point at these files that describe the API and the schema, and magic happens in the proper binding code in whatever language you choose to work in is automatically produced. Randy Armstrong later today has an entire talk on this topic. I think it might be a very significant improvement to UA and extend its reach into the IT world. We also added sorting capability to historical event retrieval, enhancing that capability, much like a order by clause in a SQL query. You can now do the order by to a historical event retrieval. We added pub/sub actions for executing commands with a request response pattern, for example, similar to calling UA methods. In fact, pub/sub actions will often be wired to UA methods if the entity, the publisher accepting the action, is also a UA server, as an example. But actions can actually do more than just what methods do, but it's a similar concept, a very desirable feature that has been on the list of things to do for quite some time. And we've also added a DTLS mapping for the UDP transport. The DTLS will be used can be used only with unicast UDP, not multicast. But there's advantages to doing so when you're doing unicast, so that was added. So that's my update on the 1.05 core specification. Thanks for joining me today, and stay tuned for some more exciting talks on OPC UA.